The horse bits jangled, the animals whinnied and huffed, and then Timothy and Richard trotted into the dusky night, leaving me alone with a camp full of robbers. I put my cold hand to the place where my face was still throbbing and listened until I could no longer hear them. More wood was fetched and a fire was made. Redcliffe and his men talked lowly to themselves, leaving me in peace. At one point, someone put down a bowl of food for me, but for once I wasn't hungry. At last, Redcliffe got up from his place by the fire and sat down by me. "What is the seal that everyone is talking about?" "A stupid, lifeless piece of gold. It must be more valuable than ordinary gold if Western soldiers have come looking for it." "It belongs to the king." "Oh, that seal, is it? No wonder." "I just don't understand why they took it in the first place." "Did you ask them?" "Several times." "Idiot girl." I was about to take a bite out of my bread, but I put it down and demanded, "Why do you say that?" "When a man steals for glory or for riches, he brags about it. When he steals to protect something, then he keeps it a secret. He'll guard it with his very life if he has to." A sudden light flared up in my mind. "That's it, isn't it? They took the seal to protect it." "That would be my guess." I put my fingers to my head. "But if the king's guard followed them—" "You've forgotten. The king's guard currently have no king. Whose orders did they follow when they pursued your friends?" I closed my eyes. I am an idiot. Timothy wasn't a traitor. He wasn't even a thief. He was a hero. It all made such complete sense that I could have kicked myself for not seeing it in the first place. Had Timothy's family always been connected in some way with the king's family? Hadn't Marissa gotten me into exclusive parties, all because her father had been knighted in the last war? And wouldn't the king naturally go to Timothy, the son of his trusted friend Sir John Robert, when he was looking for a dependable ally? I mean, who wouldn't trust Timothy? Timothy hadn't broken the rules since he was 9 years old and stole plums from Jem Carver's farm. A person would have to be an idiot not to trust Timothy to do the right thing. And I, who had known him from the time I was an infant, should have trusted him from the very start. I was still berating myself when I heard a horse galloping toward our camp. I jumped to my feet while Redcliffe rushed for his bow, but it was no enemy. "Timothy," I said. He dismounted before the horse even stopped. His eyes were locked on me, brightened not only by the fire but by some secret excitement. He paused at the sight of Redcliffe and the other men, all waiting for an explanation on his early return. But he only took my hand and pulled me away from everyone. When we were far enough away that we couldn't be overheard, he stopped and said, "Lisbette, you came back." "You lied, didn't you?" he said eagerly. "I must have ridden for 30 minutes before it hit me that you'd lied again." "Of course I lied. I just wanted to get rid of Richard." "Where is it then?" "Turn around." "What?" "Just do it." I waited until he turned his back to me, and then I opened my coat, undid my bodice buttons, and pulled out the seal. "Now you can look." He turned. It was too dark for him to see what I was holding, so I found his hand and put the seal in it. He gripped it hard, and then my hand. "All this time you had it?" "You have no idea how heavy that thing got. My dress is ruined." "You never did take off your coat." "Timothy, did you really take it to protect it?" "You guessed." "Only just before you came riding back, but even if you had stolen it, I would have given it back to you. I promise you I would have. I was keeping it all this time to give back to you when Richard wasn't near." "You might have dropped a hint." "But Timothy, you have to tell me what happened back in Ottleton. Why did you have to take the seal?" He only shook his head. "Not yet. Things are still too dangerous. But now that I have it back, maybe we can bring this all to an end soon." "Then at least tell me why you were taking it to Easton." "I can't even tell you that, but I promise that I'll tell you everything soon. I swear I will." "Is Richard coming back too?" "No, I didn't tell him my suspicions. Maybe I should have, because this was his mission too. But after seeing him hit you, I just can't trust him anymore." He reached over and brushed my face with his thumb. "Does it still hurt?" "Hardly at all." Suddenly he laughed. "And you really had it this whole time?" "I know what you must be thinking. How could I watch you all freeze in the river while I sat there warm and dry all the while with the seal under my coat? But if I had known before what I know now, I would have handed it back to you in a heartbeat." "But why didn't you give it to Captain Hargrove if you thought I had stolen it?" "Well," I said, "I guess deep in my heart I didn't want you to go to prison. Lisbette, I'm so happy right now I could kiss you." I inhaled quickly. "But I won't," he hurried to assure me. "Anyways, I'd better get going. If I hurry, I can be to Easton by morning light." "Oh, but—" "I have to hurry, but don't worry. Redcliffe will get you home safely." "Well, then take my horse. She's fresher than yours." But as we started back to camp, we heard the arrival of a second horse, Richard. I knew he wouldn't be far behind, but I had hoped that we might have more time before he returned. I started to warn Timothy, but he had already hidden the seal behind his back. Richard got down from his horse. In the firelight, I could see how flushed he was. "I used to be a very trusting man when it came to my friends," he said as he approached. "But when my friends turn against me, what am I to think?" He waited for one of us to speak. "Well, Timothy, was she lying yet again? Is that why you suddenly had to turn around and go back to her?" He shot me a venomous glance. "Yes, but she knows now we're protecting it. Things are different." Different, he spat. How? Has she told you some new place for us to go look? Because if she has, I think I'm going to. Timothy pulled the seal from behind his back. It's right here. Richard stared for several seconds, then his shoulders dropped and he took a deep breath. I was beginning to think no one would ever see that thing again. You see, it was safe all the time. Lisbette had it. I knew Richard was going to be angry, and I was already stepping behind Timothy when Richard snatched the seal from Timothy's hand. Before anyone could act, Richard smashed the seal across the side of Timothy's head. Timothy went crashing to the ground in an unconscious heap. Even as I dropped to my knees, Richard was running back to his horse. Why did you do that? I screamed. I can't trust anyone with this thing but myself, he said as he swung his leg over the saddle. Then he kicked the horse's flanks and went galloping off into the night. One of Redcliffe's arrows went sailing after him, but it missed and lodged in a tree. On the ground, Timothy wasn't moving. A gash under his hair was starting to ooze blood. Touching him gingerly, I felt for his breath and released my own when I found it. Redcliffe pushed me aside and felt for a pulse and then called for his men to help him. He and the others carried Timothy to the fire, and I grabbed a blanket and covered him. Pulling a questionably clean handkerchief from his pocket, Redcliffe pressed it to the side of Timothy's head. Redcliffe, do something, I pleaded. Hush, girl, he's coming around already. Timothy groaned. I leaned down close to him, watching him carefully. He blinked and then opened his eyes. What happened? He said, reaching up to touch his head and wincing. Richard hit you on the head with the seal and then took off, I said. He blinked some more as if trying to understand what I had just said. Suddenly he threw off the blanket and started to get up. I put my hand on his shoulder and pressed him back down. Don't even think about it. He swallowed sickly. I have to go after him. You just got hit in the head. You can't go anywhere just yet. He lay there another moment, long enough for me to entertain thoughts of nursing him back to health, when suddenly he sat up. I need a horse. Timothy, I said, speaking as gently as I could to my invalid betrothed. He's gone. Let him go. With a strength I had not anticipated, my invalid betrothed pushed me aside and got to his feet. Holding his head, he looked around until he spotted my horse. Oh, no, I said, I won't let you. But he only picked up the saddle and threw it over the animal. Redcliffe, who had been watching with indifference, suddenly tossed the bloody rag into the fire and started forward. I thought for sure he was going to stop Timothy, but to my surprise, he started helping him. This is crazy, I said. You should be resting. What if there's a crack in your skull? But no one was listening to me. Ben, I said, you can't let him go. Make him stay at least until morning. He's his own boss, Redcliffe said, buckling the cinch. Besides, he owes that man now. I went and grabbed a saddle and started carrying it to the nearest horse when Timothy spotted me. No, you're not coming. Don't tell me what to do. I'm not going to let you go riding alone after being sledgehammered in the head. You'll only slow me down. I nobly ignored this insult, but then Redcliffe snatched the saddle from me. Listen to him, will you? What does he want with a woman tagging along at a time like this? As soon as his horse was ready, Timothy mounted, still grimacing from the pain. Redcliffe handed him a water bag and gave directions, to which Timothy nodded. And that was all. For the second time that night, Timothy had left me, only this time he hadn't even said goodbye. I felt like exploding. I wanted to cry, scream, and hit something all at once. Instead, I sat down and buried my head in my arms. The question echoed in my head, what did Timothy want with a woman like me tagging along? The answer seemed clear. Not a thing.